Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce our show, here's a quote just for this episode. The very fact that a general problem has gripped and assimilated the whole of a person is a guarantee that the speaker has really experienced it and gained something from his sufferings. He will then reflect the problem for us in his personal life and thereby show us a truth. Carl Gustav Jung. We are at rule 12 of Beyond Order. 12 more rules for life. Be grateful in spite of your suffering. It's been hard to start this one. The angst that comes with expectation. Am I prepared? This is the end. It's been 11 episodes. Well, 12 because there was an introduction that I recorded. I didn't realize we needed an introduction until I realized we needed an introduction for this series. And it was after Rule 10, I believe, when I realized there needed to be an introduction. I have not re-listened to rules 1. Do not carelessly denigrate social institutions, or rule 2. Imagine who you could be and aim single-mindedly at that. But I recall being even more anxious and more intimidated and less confident and less excited. And looking back at those two episodes, or thinking back about those two episodes, believing at this point in time that I didn't even start getting my stride until Rule 3, do not hide unwanted things in the fog, and really didn't start feeling good about the episodes until like when I had that realization we need an introduction to this series. Actually, the original introduction was 30 minutes shorter than would have been ideal, or 31, being at I think the second introduction was 38 minutes. The first introduction was 7. It is on the Culture Matters podcast. You can listen to it. It's a few hundred episodes back, when the original first 2 were released, thinking that was going to be done in a different cadence. But Brad came in the hotel room when I was recording. I was introducing. We had to go. It just wasn't an ideal. It wasn't an ideal representation of the intention, of the goal, of the values that I think I'd like to exude, in respect to what these rules are and what they can mean for you and what they have done for me going through this process. I'm glad that we've kept those first episodes on the show and that first introduction. It can show the progress. It wasn't until after Rule 10 that I realized to do the second introduction. And when I did the second introduction, I feel good about the introduction, and I'm glad I re-recorded it. But there was a hesitancy to do so. There was an angst to do so. There was a doubt, a self-doubt, a crippling anxiety that has led to inaction in my life and can lead to inaction in the future, and was creeping in prior to doing this rule, I think, as a consequence of, well, of course, many responsibilities, the things that have to get done are a factor. And but that, the pressure of this is the end. How am I going to end this? Of course, there's going to be a recap of all the rules, but the pressure is on. And also from going through the rules so arduously, rereading the book, highlighting what stands out, curiosities, concerns, conflicts, writing, typing my notes in Word, and based on what sticks out from each rule, going back, rereading those notes, summarizing them. I got my remarkable pen. If you've been following along, I got my remarkable back right here. I got my remarkable back, my remarkable pen. Well, my remarkable pen back, 'cause I didn't have my remarkable for almost 2 weeks. It feels like longer. That was crippling. I had to use paper again. And there was a hesitancy to start. There was, and this is why my story, this example, this case study, this is part of what the idea of the 24 rules or the 12 rules for life, beyond order, 12 more rules for life, learning or being made aware of the rules, learning them, understanding them, attempting to act them out. The fruit of that, the outcome of that could be, and in like the subchapter, the third subchapter of this rule, be grateful in spite of your suffering, courageous courage, but subordinate love. To have courage to just start. At some point in time, I had to hit record. I prepared. I don't want to just read my notes. I'd like to explore with you based on what I've come to learn about myself in this journey, what I've come to learn from the rules, what I've come to learn from taking Dr. Peterson's courses on Peterson Academy, which I just finished. What's available on the Peterson Academy yesterday, because I had completed Introduction to Nietzsche, wasn't satisfied with my grade of an 83. I completed I learned the hard way that I need to pay attention. Something I didn't learn in school. You have to go to learn that. So that's been humbling. I had to I finished the Sermon on the Mount, which I feel uh, proud that I got a 95 so far. Of course, the final exams are not out, by the way. So the GPA can go down dramatically or increase substantially. And I believe a 92 or yeah, 92 point something or another. Finished the last course of the Peterson, the last lecture of the 9 of the personality and transformation. I got so much from that course on Peterson Academy. Took that last test and I really wanted to get 100 and I did, and I felt very good about myself there. Keep in mind, I'm someone that did not finish schooling. I'm self-taught. The culture matters. We work in consistently 7 states, and we do a lot of good in company culture and corporate America, private. Well, I guess private America, private businesses, and have an amazing business, and I have a lot to be proud of um, for as an unschooled person that I'm starting to accept and claw my way out of my own inferiority complex, insecurities that are holding me back from being the best person, family member, spouse, future father, child, a citizen, community contributor. I'm going through that checklist, and rule one, do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievements. You might not know any of this about me because you've listened to the show 912 or whatever episode we're on now at this time. Well, when goes out, this will probably be episode closer to 920, and not know much about me because I've been listening to Hear What Is Unsaid. One of the foundational pillars, I would call it like a pillar of the Culture Matters podcast: read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, speak to let go. I've been listening to hear what is unsaid for years, interviewing hundreds of, I don't know if it's hundreds, because it's more of a lot of people come back. I have to recalculate how many people. It's over 200, but is that a hundreds? Anyway, having hundreds and hundreds of inquiring, curiosity embodying conversations, there have been less, although more in the recent year, less of me sharing my biography, background, uh, facts and data and knowledge around who I am, where I come from, what I believe, um, what who we are as an organization, what we do, what we don't do, who we work with. Many of the people we work with, all of the people we work with have been on the Culture Matters podcast. Some of them, we gave we dedicated the Lollapalooza 2024 New Year's Eve 4 a.m. to 9:38 p.m. marathon with 23 or 21 friends of the Culture Matters podcast to the late John Schwartz, who we worked with for years. Rest in peace, brother. You know some of the others that have been on the show: the real Brad Lee, Christine Beckwith, Brian Hess, Eddie Perez. The list goes on. Mike Drop Calhoun, Peter Fournier, Robert Freehafer. If I leave anybody out, they're going to be upset. Maria Quattrone, the Vester family, all these unbelievable people, Berman, um, that have deeply impacted my life. I have, oh my God, did I forget anybody? There's people from almost like it's like CM 1.0 that I hope to have on that I that I'll that I'm not sharing. Let's see, put CM 2.0. All of the every wait, am I forgetting anybody? That's gonna bother me if I don't share every I said John rather the no, I'm not. Well, there's so many people associated with who I just shared. I mean, I could be here for 4 hours talking about all the unbelievable people that are partnered with and leaders of and with, and this is a nationwide enterprise of culture and value and service and core values and story and mission and vision. And I am so grateful for all of these people and all of the people on the Culture Matters podcast. There are 76 guests that have been on the show. That's an old statistic because I need to update that because there's been some new guests that have been on the show, but more than once and less than 10 times. I had it noted there have been 76 actual guests. This is my culture. Not everybody, we don't work with everyone, but those that we do, we go deep and it's real. And there are people, it's like family. And it's something to be grateful for. It's something to be thankful for. And that brings us to this rule: be grateful in spite of your suffering. I don't think if it was for my personal suffering, now I'm not alone in that. Everybody has a story. I don't believe I would be surrounded by all of these guardian angels, these amazing people, have the opportunity to serve and work with them and their people and their people's people and so on and so forth if it wasn't for the suffering. I don't think I would have came up with, and Beckwith knows this well. If you haven't listened to the Finding Honor series on the Culture Matters podcast, the book that, in a sense, we did together, Finding Honor, Your Journey to the Truth, that Beckwith talked about our advisor, me, the advisor, her, the advisee relationship in her journey to the truth, and her journey building her nationwide coaching and consulting firm with dozens and dozens of coaches and thousands and thousands of customers through all of the entities that she serves. Um, she was there when I gave that one of the first lectures on the liar lid journey. The this the concept that I had, a working model of how mentor and mentee relationships model themselves out in business. It was and is a working theory of management, a working theory of leadership, and how to actually get the most out of working relationships, not only attract higher level talent and increase the likelihood of career pathing and career planning and service from the best people that we attract, but how to let go of those that we've outgrown, or they've outgrown us, or the organization's outgrown both of us. And that journey of actual development of founder to CEO started with those lectures, the liar lid journey, that I believe, going back to this quote, the very fact that a general problem has gripped and assimilated the whole of a person is a guarantee that that speaker has really experienced it and perhaps gained something from his sufferings. He will then reflect the problem for us in his personal life and thereby show us the truth. Carl Jung. Based on my own autobiography and experiences in the first businesses that I consulted and raised capital for, started, and a part of creating, I believe that intuition, that insight into management, and all of the hundreds of books that became thousands and hours, what almost 12,000 hours of audible listening, and the study in my early adolescence and evolving as a firm as we have as a consequence of that, and who we work with and how we work with them and all that goes back to those early insights that came from actual experience that I was processing as a entrepreneur, as a adolescent, as a consultant, as an advisor, as a mentor, as a mentee. And that eventually brought me to Dr. Peterson's work, his textbook, through my now wife, who urged me, hey, there are a lot of similarities in your liar lid journey to this great thinker. And the Maps of Meaning textbook, which I remember early on when I was reading all these books on company culture and leadership and case study, books on various case studies of company cultures. And it was this interesting interaction between my own autobiography, what I had experienced, and I think how I was processing and projecting it out and mapping it out and attempting to reconcile it for myself through customers, and the macro content available that I found through the internet, through Audible, through the library, and so on, and that interaction between my own experience that I was attempting to rectify and synthesize and work through, and the macro, the information available to me that I was reading and listening to and synthesizing and attempting to formulate a working theory around business. And I had come across the Maps of Meaning book a couple times in search for culture, and actually overlooked it and didn't read it. Like, wow, did not purchase it. One of the main reasons why I didn't purchase it was it was like $70, and that was an intimidating, that was definitely a reason why at the time I didn't. This is 10 years ago, a little less than 10 years ago, probably. Um, but inevitably, when I got it in my hands, it became another tool in the tool belt to work to chip away and clarify, cut away the concept of the culture puzzle, which is that was our That was our first deliverable, right? What's the puzzle of culture, a company culture? You have the hero, which was in the Liarla journey. The hero, the hero who ultimately has an adversarial relationship with, at some point in the journey, with their mentor. Every mentee has a mentor, and every mentor is a mentee, whether they realize it or not. There's a heavy that's heavily discussed in 30 Days of Thought. And that can lead to a breakdown in communication, a breakdown in alignment, a breakdown in trust, a breakdown in the relationship, which I had experienced in my autobiography and adolescent autobiography, and actually brought that into business relationships and modeled that out unbeknownst to me in a self-destructing way and suffered the consequences. And that gave me an insight on something that actually happens with regularity, inevitably in business. Business being, the petri dish for the curious consultant, the engaged exploratory advisor, the professor without a home, the teacher without a tenure, the like, who am I to even have the gall, the chutzpah, the 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 desire to, well, the desire maybe I made clear in this conversation. It's like to figure it out my own self, but the balls to attempt to teach and to be in a position of authority around these topics. Well, the confidence came from experience. The confidence came from results. The confidence came from success. It came from, wow, look what we've done. Look what I've actually accomplished. And I can teach this. I am worthy to do this. I do have the for whatever reason, the capacity to be a teacher of culture, a leader in culture. I think it matters, and I think that I'm willing to take the risk to start the business and to be an authority in it, and and not quit, and figure out how to actually be value add to companies. But it all of this, I mean, this is 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. I meet my now wife around that time and get introduced to Peterson in 2000, late 2017, early 2018, get into Maps to Meaning. I remember the first time I picked that book up, I was like, whoa, this is what is this? Because that was more of a textbook. And there were so many similarities with this intuition, the story. Because the culture puzzle was hero. I didn't even finish that thought. There's I don't have a diagram. Wasn't necessarily going to go into this exegesis here, or explication, better word for that. The Liarla journey, that mentor-mentee conflict, in a sense, there's a that leads the mentee has a fall. That fall then leads to the mentee wanting to become the mentor, wanting to actually. So in that case, like, oftentimes what you see in a small business are there those closest to whoever's in operating control of the business, authority of the business. They get so close, they learn so much relative to how the leader asks them questions, listens to them, how integrated their values are, their behaviors are rather, with their words and their thoughts, increases or decreases the likelihood of those close to them actually falling off and leaving and starting their own thing. That's going to happen now, in hindsight. That is a part of the process. That's a part of the cycle of life, the process of innovation and business creation. But how it happens interpersonally, emotionally, has uh, mm, doesn't necessarily have to be in a negative, um, a negative or deconstructing or value destructing or shame creating and resentful, deceitful, arrogant way. Rule 11. It could be riddled with gratitude. It could be fueled with gratitude and actually lead to more value being created for all parties in the future, right? The pupil that doesn't outshine the master has let both himself and the master down, Friedrich Nietzsche. So that, but the essence of the Lyrelet journey was the mentee and the mentor are in conflict. The mentee leaves. The mentee starts their own thing. The mentee, with unbeknownst to themselves, actually models out that same narrative that happened to them to their future because they become the mentor, and now that mentor to the mentee. In essence, they haven't broken that psychological cycle, and they're going to mirror that what happened to them unwittingly or unintentionally to those to others that in their hero's journey they are taking the place of where that original mentee who's now the mentor to a mentee that their mentee is taking that place in that journey. So it's like a line drawn up, and there's that conflict, the mentor, the mentee, and there's a conflict, there's an unreconciled conflict, there's a loss of faith in one another, there's a fall of the mentee, both fall in a sense that even the organization, right, loses great people and has a down cycle, which follows it. So, like, unlike Adizez's work, Ishak Adizez's work around the organizational life cycles, my thesis was around the psychological journey of the founder and the constituents therein around them, like the business partners that start, because oftentimes business partnerships fail. It's like, well, why do they fail? It's psychological, it's management, it's education, it's a lot of what Peterson talks about in Rule 1, a lack of integration, a lack of, and not just Rule 1, but like his thesis really solves to that and can help small business owners that started businesses that lacked information, awareness, education, that likely if they had it, they unlikely would have even started the business in the first place. But with it, they're at a higher likelihood to maintain those strong partnerships as businesses grow. Because the two biggest things that destroy small business that have great ideas are divorces and business divorces, like personal and business divorces. So anyway, there's a full mentee. The mentee now wants to become the mentor. They start at ground zero and then go through the trials and tribulations of creating their business and their image. And if they don't learn the lessons along the way, they end up modeling that behavior that was done to them in their future mentees. And it's the liar lid journey. And to break the liar lid, one has to become more self-aware, honest, educated. That's where the idea of reading to think, writing to develop, listening to hear as unsaid, speaking to let go came in as almost as in a sense a liberal arts education to help small businesses. And we've been doing this for years and years and years and years with our client partners throughout the United States. And that brings me to gratitude. What is what is Dr. Peterson getting at? Be grateful despite your suffering. What have I learned from this book this year, in this process? Well, if we look at the contrast between Rule 1, which is do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievements. The social institutions would be like one's culture. Carelessly is an important word. The creative achievements would be like other people or events or circumstances within one's culture. It's like going against the human spirit without one, fully understanding it, two, embodying it in oneself. Like the individual loses, each of us has the capacity or potential to lose ourself in the group, in the tribe, in an idea or a set of ideas, to completely lose ourself and not go on our own hero's journey, but participate as like an anomalous NPC in someone else's, and that is like that someone, right? How good or evil are they? But do not carelessly denigrate. If we're being grateful, and this is where I like how Peterson starts, because the careless, I'm not caring. I don't have an aim. I'm unclear where I'm going, so I don't know what I'm saying no to and what I'm saying yes to. How can I formulate my identity? How can I structure the necessary components of a life if I don't have an aim? How do I have an aim if I don't care? I'm not taking myself or this life that I've been given seriously enough to care. And so I don't know where I'm going. And I'm more likely to be in a state of anxiety that I'm unable to leverage in action that actually creates value for myself and others versus um, completely be crippled by it and do nothing that helps myself in the long run or others in the short or the long run. So do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievements. But in that rule, Dr. Peterson talks about playing by the rules long enough, learning what the rules are so you could caringly criticize or critically make better. And that's part of being a responsible individual, responsible human. On the other, in contrast, at the end of the book, Rule 12, be grateful despite your suffering. So we're suffering regardless, but be grateful in, in spite of your suffering. The gratitude piece, the gratitude piece opens up the potential to take responsibility in spite of suffering. Meaning, if you're listening to this, you could be down and out. You could be at the lowest low, and arguably a victim of circumstance, a victim of life, and all of us are at all of us are at one degree or the next. It's like we don't comparing traumas or comparing sufferings isn't necessarily helpful. Each, what could be crippling for one person and easy for another could be, you know, doesn't mean that the person that's crippled by their sufferings isn't crippled by their sufferings and needs help. But the idea of being grateful opens up a possibility for one to gain oneself, for one to move closer to one's authenticity, to one's destiny, to one's calling, to one's individuality, to one's culture, to one's uh, parenthood, childhood, familyhood, spouse, partnerships, economic utility, communal engagement, like value constructing behavior. That's the art. It's being grateful. And so like in the subchapter, the, like bottom up or looking at the bottom, down can help up or something, understanding how bad things actually be. There's a self-awareness exercise. It could mitigate because there's an entitlement in the acceptance of victimhood. It's like, okay, now what do I get versus what more else can I sacrifice and give to move through these adversities from this pain. And value creation had a relationship. The whole Zoom just shut down. Hopefully, I didn't lose any. Yeah, there we go. The Zoom just restarted. So, this might have to be like a part two because this is way longer than I thought it would be. I'm excited. It's almost like I'm doing the recap, but it's because I'm growing from growing. Is growing even the right word? I guess I should know that if I've gone this deep in these books. Growing. I'm opening up to myself, to you, which is helping me open up to myself from this process. As I was saying, yes, what if suffering and value creation? Now that's an interesting story. What if you can get behind that? You've been through who knows what that is absolutely terrifying. And what if you actually thought from this day forward that what you've been through is actually what the world would need, what the world needs, uh, because of how much energy is behind you, pushing you like a tsunami wave on shore. You're going to get farther on shore, pushing you towards something that is good, something that is as high as possible. The higher you aim, the more good you can do with the world. The lower you aim, all the suffering you've been through, the worse you're going to do in the world for yourself and others. Like the more, but what if the way that you looked at this, oh my, I've been through so much pain and suffering. I have so much energy inside, or yeah, not just inside of me, but that can come through me in this world to sacrifice and be, like rule 7, work as hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. That energy is going to come from a negative. It's like I'm pulling the bow back. I have a target. I need the bow to go as far back as possible. Shit, I need a bigger bow. I need a stronger arrow. I just can't have an aim. I actually need that energy. If I don't have enough of a bow pulling back, I could have a target and not be able to hit it. I need to go through shit. I need the downs to go to the up. So the down for up is about contrast. And it goes back to us being prey animals that became predators. I think that we actually developed the ability to see, like our eyesight, our vision, and the strength of our vision had a relationship with needing to be able to see predators in the darkness, predators in the darkness. And the deeper we go into the dark, the more exposure we have to the dark, the more it forces light to come through us. So there's an awareness that can lead to a faith, that necessity of faith when we look at that what is it? It counterbalances the entitlement that the victim is entitled to. And if we're listening to Rule 11 about, do not let yourself become resentful, deceitful, and arrogant, Peterson's making the argument that the nihilism as a consequence of being thrown into this world and not having a belief, like, and it's not just a conceptual belief, although I think it's that too, but a behavioral belief, like living in a good way, living living in ways that your conscience would tell us would be the right thing to do. That we could all agree, all right, that's the right way to go about it. And my actions and my words and my thoughts are integrated, and um that takes a faith, because ultimately we don't know if we're getting we don't know the reward. We don't know, we can't get a guarantee that it's all going to be worth it and it's going to have meaning. We're creating that meaning with the faith. We're creating that meaning with the sacrifice. We're creating that meaning with subduing our short-term, impulsive, self-oriented desires and wants and needs for a long-term satisfaction that includes other people. And it's been 45 minutes and I barely got into what I wanted to get into. Um, Visualizing and imagining how bad things can actually be and turn out if we act out behaviors that undermine ourselves and undermine others. So behaviors that undermine ourselves and undermine others on a very individual sense. And this is elucidated in the How to Plan Your Life course I recommend on the Peterson Academy. But each of us has our what vice, like things that are like I know people that smoke a lot of, they like to smoke. So maybe that would be something that can in excess could take them away from their aim and undermine their ability to responsibly navigate stress and the unknown in the face of their goals and take away value from their loved ones and them and ultimately contradict the what they say and what they think they want. Each of us has obstacles that are a component of our genes, our environment, our destiny that ultimately it's like you have a gift and then you have a an opposite albatross. And if you envision what your life would be like if you act out all the negative and for 5 years out, what consequence could that actually have? um our In rule 12, Peterson is making the argument that having gratitude, being thankful, opens up the potential to look at the dark and see potential in the dark, I believe. And gratitude, it's like, it's like opening up. Because to have gratitude, we have to look at what we actually have, and it takes what's negative and can actually use it as fuel to do something constructive and positive. Whereas if we just sit in the resentment and stew in the resentment and choose to let it almost embody us or take us over, we'll be more likely to succumb to rule 6, falling into ideology. We'll be less likely to not do what we hate. We'll be less likely to notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Opportunity lurks in the dark. You're going towards the problems. The leader goes towards the problems and tries to figure out how to fix them and brings everyone together to solve the problems that make the world work. Whether it's your small business that you're doing, you're having that team meeting to figure out what's going on, where are we thriving, where are we failing, and how can we do better, and what do I need to bring to the table to do that better? And great job here for doing that. And, separately, hey, I need to have a meeting with this person because I don't think that they're living up to expectations. And that's going to be a tough conversation to have, to not just make it all about me, but to really try to listen and understand what is going on. And has the organization failed them? And have I failed them? And am I out of alignment? And they see something and they're disengaged because of how I'm acting or not acting and what we're doing that we're not doing. And, or are they just in a season where they don't or cannot step up to the plate? And if I don't do something about it, it's going to hurt everybody. And or am I going to avoid the whole thing as a leader and just let resentment build and the avoidance of conflict make more and more conflict occur because of we're not having the real conversations, because I'm not being a courageous leader. I'm not having a courage. I'm not leading with love. The ability to burden my own insecurities, my own ego in each conversation. Gratitude is a component of leadership integration, value creation, trust building, mutual respect, things that we talk about on the Culture Matters podcast, things that guests talk about constantly, constantly, constantly. In different ways, the guests talk about gratitude, 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 even if they don't say gratitude. But it's hard to have gratitude if you're a victim. And you might actually have been a victim of circumstance. But at some point, I, you, we have to break that story and fulfill it with stories of courage, of love, of leadership, of and choose behaviors and rituals that match those stories so that our world can be better and the the world can be better. And if we don't make that decision on an individual level, I mean, it's a pretty big responsibility because Peterson's quoting Dostoevsky saying, if anything's going wrong in the culture, it's your fault. That's a big responsibility. Or that, if 10 people tell the truth in a society, it could save the society. Is that going to be you? Um, Here are some things that I do to act out gratitude that I didn't even realize that I was, well, one of them I definitely know that I've done to act out gratitude, and that is writing letters to people. If you listen to the show and you're a guest on the show, you may have gotten a letter. I I write letters to people because of three influences. I was in a meeting once, the pavement group, and they were talking about handwritten notes to customers of the pavement group, and it hit me like a bag of bricks. That is something that I would get so much for because I had remembered that my mother, Linda Doran, used to write me letters when I was a child. And Barbara, my mother, on episode 242, she actually gave me a box of these letters in my mid 20s. I had not known that there are all these letters written to me by Linda, and how that made me feel reading those letters that had been written to me by my biological mother was so overwhelming. And I have immense gratitude and connection and love. And when I write letters to people, it makes me, it brings me closer to the spirit of my culture and Linda and her loving spirit. And it is mutually beneficial. It's beneficial to me, it's beneficial to the recipient, the people that have told me that they keep the letters, which I hope they do because I put, you know, it's like that's where my insecurity comes. I was like, I'm giving a part of my soul to you. It's like a heavy burden. It's like, you better not lose that letter. The ego always creeps in. Put a lot of work into it. It's not just like a thank you, although that's nice too. That's thoughtful. There's a lot of there's a connection. Each letter is it is an opportunity for me to speak to things that I see in my counterpart that I think are value add and creating, and I'm grateful for. And it's an act of gratitude that I received as a recipient from someone that I love and has been so important to me that I'm able to give to others, and it's helped me. Um, and I was listening to a book years ago, The Education of Value Investor by Guy Spear, who talked about how he wrote thank you notes. And I got to meet him at the Berkshire meeting. We're in the hat actually, a couple years ago, and I got to tell him and show him some of the letters, and that was a nice moment for me. That he used for 10 years, he wrote people notes like to stay in touch with them, and that intentionality. So it was the combination of those three influences that led me to start writing letters. And that's a gratitude exercise. I remember the first time I did it, I've been doing it for years now. That they were grateful notes, and then that eventually became less explicit, more implicit in just the act of doing it. And so that's one way I practice gratitude. Another would be, I think, listening to guests on the Culture Matters podcast is a act of gratitude because it could there's a subservience, there is an investment into the relationship, into the future relationship to actually sit, to prepare, to listen to someone else. And it it has to do with this idea, this concept of service that Dr. Peterson talks about in Rule 12, that the Mephistopheles or Mephistophelian, I don't know how to say it, Mephistophelian spirit, the adversary versus the hero. The adversary versus the hero. The adversary in me has all this experience, book knowledge, whatever I've come to think to know and think I know, to understand and think I understand, and bring into every conversation. And so the adversary in me can undermine the relationship I have with my counterpart if I don't listen, if I'm not coming with an open spirit, an open mind, and asking open questions curiously. There's a curious endeavor going on of discovery that is, I think, what Dr. Peterson is making the argument of the hero. The hero chooses courage. Uh, the hero is choosing courageous trust. Hey, I have darkness in me, you have darkness in you. I'm going to not be naive and just let you walk all over me, or not be cynical and not talk to you. I'm going to attempt to have a conversation, and ideally, we can do something together. We can cooperate, even though we're competing at some level, from the sense of like, hey, I don't want my beliefs to be destroyed in this conversation. My beliefs are keeping me safe and secure and helping protect me from the existential anxiety of the unknown and the unknowable unknown. Your beliefs are keeping you safe and protected in that existential anxiety of the unknown and the unknowable unknown. It takes a lot of courage to have a conversation with someone else when it isn't just us agreeing with one another, because we're not believing, we actually aren't thinking, we are just acting out the concepts and frameworks, beliefs that we think we believe. There's this call to faith in that so I there's a gratitude that's being acted out in the discovery occurring through the interviews of the Culture Matters podcast that helps temper my internal adversary to want to be right, to want to know, to not want to feel shame around not knowing, and feel and be perceived as less than. That would lead to a volatile or arguing or adversarial relationship. This adversary in me is impulsive, and it's intellect, it's knowledge, it's facts, figures, frameworks. My counterpart, uh, right, we're mirroring each other. They have their impulses based on their lived experience, based on their genetic proclivities, and their knowledge, their content, their frameworks, that how they're conceiving the world. We're both bringing it together in a conversation. The more antithetical or contradictory or contrary uh, our framework, our content and our frameworks, the less likelihood we're going to hear one another in a conversation, because of impulse, because of the fight or flight response, because of what happens neuropsychologically, right, or physiologically in a conversation. All of a sudden, you know, what just happened? Why did I say that? Now we're arguing. We can't pull it back. It's fight or flight. It's, we're fighting or we're running away. That's not getting us closer to the truth. It's not getting me closer to the truth, but it's a component of the adversary. So the hero has faith. The hero tempers the impulse, invests into the relationship, looks looks beyond, looks beyond, 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 beyond order. That's the book, right? Beyond order. My enemy is ordered in a certain way based on their how they're showing up. Well, how they're showing up, it reveals the order, or how ordered or orderly are things. Their autobiography, the content that's making up their identity, the frameworks or the operating systems that they're operating on. If I take those things too seriously, I mean, I have to take them seriously enough to not get killed, I guess. That's a factor. But how, but, at what, how much good could I bring in the world? What if how much good I could bring in the world has a relationship with how much evil I can burden. I can rest on my shoulders and kind of work through. I don't know. But the where I was going with that, there's a sacrifice in preparation and asking questions and leaning in and trying to understand why people understand the things they understand in the ways they understand them. That is an action of gratitude, I think, because to not be impulsively reactive to my counterpart, I have to act out gratitude. Is the acting out of gratitude forgiveness? Is that what that is? Is because gratitude, I could say I'm grateful as a way to act. This is the answer. The other side of it is we can say that we're grateful for something or look at the positives or attempt to fixate on what we perceive as positives, like where we've come from and what we've accomplished and how far we've come as an anesthetic to the suffering that comes with awareness and the recognizing of truth and the actual responsibility that is a call to action to unknot the knots, to work through the contradictions and to solve the problems. We don't want to use gratitude as an ideology to avoid personal responsibility, which is the actual taking on voluntary suffering, which is actually saying, hey, yes, we've come very far. But this is where we want to go. This is where we said we'd go. This is what we said we'd do. It's not happening. Why is it not happening? And how can we make it better? That is a dialogue of courage. It's like, yeah, okay, Kierkegaard, life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards. So we have to understand it backwards. We can't use gratitude as a a way to not talk about and synthesize the lessons from the past mistakes. And because the wins aren't teaching us about ourselves, about our blind spots, about where we're failed. It's where we've failed is where we learn. So we have to, but so it's not gratitude to avoid looking at the failures and trying to seek to understand the past. It's actually gratitude that leads us to look at, like, if we're not looking at the past and we're not looking at where we failed in an attempt to draw conclusions for how we could do better in the future and how we could move forward. We want to move forward from the past, not dwell on the past and get sucked in the wake of the past. We also don't want to, because that's no good either. So I could see where someone would say, "Hey, I'm going to operate from a positive mental attitude and live in gratitude and use this as an ideology not to look at the past as a way to have that anesthesia, to not feel that guilt and not feel that suffering." However, we for gratitude to be an actuality, the hero is looking, right, understood backwards, and is drawing the conclusions necessary to move forwards with a new story, um, with a new challenge, with the tools and the temperament to face the dragon and slay the dragon. This whole book is a call to action of how to actually face the chaos, how to take on voluntary suffering. Each of these rules are like uh, uh, stepping stones to step up to, like, who did Marduk fight? Apsu or something? Or Kingu? No, Apsu. Apsu died. I think it was like no, Tiamat, was it Tiamat had relations with Kingu, and then bore all these, like, no, the children killed Apsu, and then she married Kingu, and then Marduk had a fight. Who did he fight? It's gonna drive me crazy. I should know this story. Marduk willingly chose to fight and beat and ended up at the top of the hierarchy. Um, because all the children of the culture, all those differing personalities came together and undermined the culture, and culture was disrupted. And the evil queen married an authoritarian tyrant, and then Marduk had to come up as the potential of the individual to rediscover the actual structure of reality through the word, through their action, through their courageous trust, the trust of the word. It's like, this, things aren't right the way they are. This is how they should be. This is what we should do. I'm gonna sacrifice. I'm gonna make the great sacrifice. That could be my name, my reputation, the admiration of those that just loved me before because of what I did over here that was more accessible, or acceptable rather. The whole point of Beyond Order is to help us go beyond order. It's to help us venture into the unknown. There's what is and there's what could be. And it's helping us with the should, with the value laden behaviors necessary to put things in their proper place, necessary to put things in their proper place as a consequence of ourselves being in our own proper place. We're not going to be carelessly denigrating social institutions or creative achievements. We're going to imagine who we could be and aim single mindedly at that. We're not going to hide unwanted things in the fog. You can't do that if you have gratitude. Real gratitude. Because real gratitude, being grateful in spite of your suffering, means that you're going to have the courage to actually look into the fog and to take responsibility in spite of your suffering, to figure out how you could do something better in the future, learning from what happened in the past and not using it as a way to beat yourself up or beat yourself down, or as a catalyst to put you into some kind of destructive movement where you're one of the Apsu and Tiamat, I think it was Tiamat, kids that destroyed the culture, right? Carelessly denigrating social institutions or creative achievements, accepting ideology and being a part of it, abdicating responsibility and just becoming a part of the crowd, not working as hard as you possibly can on anything other than destroying everything. Who wants to be that? Because that's the path to, that's like the embodiment of that narcissistic quality of human nature, and the exasperation of psychopathic behavior, like warlike behavior, where we're not even fighting, it's not our nation versus another. It's our nation against itself. It's our culture against itself. It's our people against one another. And we don't want that to have a civilization, to be civilized. And we can't actually have civilization and a meaningful life where we, you know, get educated, build a career, have kids, provide for them, get them educated, get their career, participate in the community, protect the culture, have meaning, and which is like, has a relation with the least amount of suffering. This idea of pursuit of happiness, it's have the least amount of suffering and the most opportunity for a new goal to have as much positive emotion as little negative emotion. We can't have that if the freaking society breaks down. And if the society breaks down, we're not going to be grateful. I mean, well, I guess maybe that's one of the interesting. All we have is gratitude if the whole society breaks down. If the society is working, we're so entitled we don't even think about gratitude. And that's the point of the first part of the chapter is that the entitlement that comes with safety, security, love, belonging, success, resources needs to be tempered by an awareness of understanding the darkness, understanding your darkness, understanding how bad things could be so that we could take ourselves seriously and not let the worst of us rise to the top because things on the outside aren't breaking down. We can rest a little bit. We can do, we can just fuck around. That's what Osiris did in chapter 4 and rule 4. He just stopped paying attention and Seth rose up and killed him and the whole culture fell apart. And if the structure of culture is disrupted unwittingly, chaos returns. We will do anything to defend ourselves against that return. And one of the things we could do to defend ourselves against that return is to be grateful in spite of our suffering. Rule 12, follow the 12 rules. So we could be like, this all started with me trying to say some of the things that I do to be more grateful. I write letters to people in my life. I interview people, a lot of people that I don't see the value. And then I uncover it in the interaction. It's fascinating, and it's humbling and it's thought provoking. Or even people that I have this concept that I don't. It's like Abraham Lincoln. I don't like that man. Let me get to know him better. Come on the podcast. I will invite you. Um, I make introductions. Person A, meet person B. Person B, I met them this way. This is who they are to me. This is what I think is so great about them. Meet person A. I met them this way. This is who they are to me. This is what I think is so great about them. You two can help each other in these ways. This is an activity of gratitude. I am grateful that I know person A and they're who they are to me, and this is what they could offer. They've offered to me and they could offer to you. And this is that creates that's an act of gratitude and an act of faith because they could conspire against me. They could conspire to destroy me. They could conspire, and actually, if they really know me, they know me. So they know all the good and all the bad of me, and they could work together to actually use the bad against me. And so there's a vulnerability, and there's a faith, there's a humility, and there's a it's lowering authority because it's less siloed. It's less siloed, right? Their only interpretation of me, they could get together and say, "We know Jay and he's perfect." Then they meet each other and it was like 99%, 1%. So person A thought I was perfect, 99% and 1% imperfect. Person B thought I was 99% perfect and 1% imperfect. Now it's not 200 and it's 198 and 2. That's a double of how imperfect I am. I went from being 1% imperfect to 2%. Right? Because 2% goes into wait, did I just screw that? This analogy was gonna work. I knew it. I just made it up. But if stupid. Um if it was 3%, this is I don't think that makes any sense actually. Here's a better way to put it. If person A at 99%, J is perfect, 1% he's imperfect. So in that silo, I'm 1%. I have 1% imperfection. But person B is 98% I'm perfect, 2% I'm imperfect. When you mix them together, it's 1.5%. So person A is seeing me as 50% less perfect. Now, person B, I guess, if you average it, is seeing me a little bit more perfect. But I wonder if they start talking to each other, now it's 3. So 3% is if person B was 2%, 3% makes it 50%. Yeah, that makes more sense. 50% because One goes into two, 50%. So now they see me as three, which is the combination of one and two. Person B sees me as three, 50% more imperfect. And the other person sees me even more imperfectly. Or would it be, well, if you averaged it, it would be 50%. One and a half is 50% more than one. Or if you looked at it with the three, it'd be 300% more imperfect. I'll have to think that through more later. But the point is, both parties are seeing me more imperfect. If, oh, that's the value in having people. Because if I only introduce people to somebody, this is how people manipulate scenarios. If there's somebody that sees me as absolutely perfect and I introduce everyone else with that person to me, and they only see me as absolutely perfect, that can skew people that would otherwise see me as less perfect to see me as more perfect than I actually am, because they're getting this bias of this other person seeing me as more perfect. The whole point is that when you bring people together and there's more eyeballs on you or me or someone in authority, there's more contradictions that are going to be shown in the person's personality and the person's idolatrous, the idolatrous concept that comes with authority, influence, and power. And that is a call to humility and responsibility, because I'm not, me or you or anybody is not right about anything or everything and should not be worshiped. Yet we do worship those that we perceive as a higher elevation than us. It's a component of hierarchy. It's a component of, even if we're taking what Peterson's taught us, competence, and the confidence is a consequence of true competence, and that self-sacrifice and servanthood and values being acted out and values being created. But in one moment, someone can fall to the depths of hell, in the sense that they contradict everything that they ever said, and they make the wrong decision, and they show up as who they are not most of the time, and it fractures the culture and confuses reality, and everybody pays and suffers for it. And that's why there's so much responsibility with being a leader and in that top seat, whether it's a business, a country, it's a freaking author like Dr. Peterson, or it's just some guy on the internet with a podcast. See, I'm diminishing myself. That's not fair to all this work. I'm more than a guy with a thing on a podcast. I'm the founder of Culture Matters. I'm the chief, like, meaning I'm the chief. Um, People rely on me for my thoughts and my actions. People that have really done amazing things, and so I should give myself more credit, and not laugh at myself about being the chief. It does sound weird, um, but it's true. I'm not doing a good enough job sharing that. So wow, I could keep going. This was about gratitude, and I'm grateful if you're still listening to this. I think you should still be listening to this. There are thoughts here that I think could be helpful for your life. Yeah. So be grateful in spite of your suffering. This is Rule 12. Look out for the recap episode that I'm going to record on rules 1 through 12. My challenge to you would be to read Beyond Order. Well, get maps of meaning. If you haven't, this is my challenge. If especially if you enjoyed this conversation at some level, get maps of meaning. Read maps of meaning. Go in the back of the book, the table. I think it's like what is that? The bibliography, and go buy the books that are listed there. That's the real gold in there. Read 12 Rules for Life. Look out for the 12 Rules for Life series that we're doing on the Culture Matters podcast. That'll be out in the ensuing months. I'm getting ready for this McGilchrist interview. So after that, I'm going to start recording the 12 Rules for Life. Listen to this Beyond Order series while you read Beyond Order. Read it and listen to it. It's a fantastic book, and it was lost in the hoopla of the brand, Dr. Peterson's brand moving from, American pragmatist psychologist, defiler of the, we were defiler of the autocracy. Like there's a certain niche of the populace that was like pro Peterson because of stuff that was happening during the pandemic times, but like went from the that psychologist, pragmatist, um, I was called like a meta self-help guru because self-help culture is operating from a different, it was influenced by different philosophy and different ideologies than Dr. Peterson. Like so anyway, and some of them are scary. I won't even name them because I'm scared. Like, that just like contradicts this whole damn show. I have to think about that later. There's levels to this. Yeah. So I'm read Beyond Order, listen to this series again. The reason I think it's relevant is it should not necessarily expand, but well, in a sense, expand because I've taken the classes. Go on Peterson Academy, buy Peterson Academy if you haven't, and I've taken the classes, the Introduction to Nietzsche, and I've done well on the classes. I believe I understand, and the AI thing believes I understand the concepts well enough. Um, Sermon on the Mount, um, personality and transformation, and how to plan your life. And they complement this series because Beyond Order is using these like heuristic heuristics to bring to life the theory of maps of meaning that Jordan really spent a lot of time putting together over a 15-year period writing that book and decades teaching it. So, and if you're any, it's the reason he is so well known is because he was able to stand up in the face of the zeitgeist, or does that even make any sense? And not crumble because of how much work he put into his concepts. Even if you disagree with them, he's put in that work, and so there's a lot of value in there to build yourself up in and around. And we've we've leveraged that intellectual property. Of course, many dozens and dozens of thinkers and things that I've studied for my career and built this very successful um, business advisory firm focusing on company culture, and it's been a huge value add. I have a huge testimony for his work as an advisor, so and a teacher. So go in those resources, listen to this at least again. Look out for the Maps of Meaning one. I really want to do that one. That'll be a lot of fun. And there's a lot of available stuff, obviously, on the internet with YouTube, the lectures. But the Peterson Academy is awesome. I've started 18 courses. Um, the final exams aren't out yet. There's over 45 available. As of this recording, there's close to 44,000 students on. There might be more than 44,000. I think it's 44,576 as of yesterday students on this. And it's an awesome, my goal is to have some of the excelling students on the Culture Matters podcast. Look out for the recap video. Be grateful in spite of your suffering. There's more to be said, but I'll save it. Pick up 30 Days of Thought, read to think, write to develop, listen to yours unsaid, speak to let go. I wrote that book, those excerpts, and put that out with the purpose of developing oneself through that process. It's a complementary process to 12 Rules for Life, Beyond Order. 30 Days of Thought is your book to read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, speak to let go. It complements past authoring program, present, future authoring program, which I would challenge you to go go pick those up. Go in. I started the past authoring and take the Big Five personality test. It's really high impact, dense content value in there to explore. Go listen to my podcast on the Culture Matters podcast. Every Saturday we release 30 Days of Thought and Friends every Saturday without fail. And Nathan Merrill comes on the show all the time. We have exploratory conversations around phil- philosophical concepts, Peterson, many others, thinkers, Eastern, Western thought. And um, oh yeah, the Beyond Order. I never finished this thought. Beyond Order, I think, was overlooked. It goes deeper than 12 Rules for Life, and it's been overshadowed by We Who Wrestle with God because as Peterson has become more internationally recognized, he's pursuing that his deepest inquiry, I think, at this point, which is what role and what utility uh, faith and has in this world as we move in the next 100 years, uh, and attempting to attract believers, those that are intent on being value add to the world. I don't know if that makes any sense. Just I would read We Wrestle God too, of course, but Beyond Order is has been overlooked because as the brand kind of became more theologically um the perception of Dr. Peterson's is has become more and more theological. However, at the root of Dr. Peterson's work is, I think, more Nietzschean and um, pragmatic. And but that could just be my own limitations as a consequence to a bunch of factors. So anyway, thanks for listening. Go check out the recap, and we'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.